No,
It's all right.
if you don't go there, go to the player.
I got a good story. Before Jason, we were in high school, so later. All right. If we can take our seats. It's 6:30. We're going to begin the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You might pound that gavel a little bit.
I know, I'm going to. All right, at this time, we're going to start the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, June 8th, 2026 for the city of Lake Elmo. Meeting begins at 6:30. First item on the agenda for tonight is to all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda for June 8th, 2026.
Second?
All right, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. Next is to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I mean, I wasn't here, but I can make a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes
From 5/11,
from 5/11/2026.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The minutes from the May 5th,
May 11.
May 11th, thank you, 2026 Planning Commission meeting minutes are approved. Next, we move to our public hearing portion, and the first item up is Limerick Village Preliminary Plat, Rezoning, and Plan Unit Development.
All right, good evening, Chair and members of the commission. So tonight we are looking at a development project proposed in the southeast corner of the city of Lake Elmo. You can see the general location shown on the screen. This is a roughly 80-acre property that's south of 10th Street North and just west of Manning Avenue. It's on two unaddressed, or actually, sorry, I think one parcel, it does have an address, but there are two properties involved here. We don't have any wetlands on this property. The current use is a farmstead or farmed property. And the requests this evening in front of the Planning Commission are a preliminary plat and planned unit development proposed by Maplewood Development on this site. Just to note, if you have been checking in on city council agendas over the last probably 2 or 3 years, you may have seen one of the versions of the concept plan for this property. There have been 4 or 5 city council meetings where they reviewed concept plans, ultimately leading up to an environmental assessment worksheet, environmental review, which was completed over the course of late fall and winter of 2025 into 26. So here we are this evening looking at the kind of the next steps, the preliminary plat for this project called Limerick Village. So, without further ado, here is the site plan that's proposed in the preliminary plat. This was included in the plans that were attached to the staff report. So there's kind of a lot going on here, and we're gonna walk through the different elements of the proposal here as reviewed against the city's standards and requirements. So generally at a high level, what you're seeing are 679 residential units. This is an entirely residential proposed subdivision. Those units are broken out between 67 detached single-family homes, 60 patio-style townhomes, and we're kind of moving generally from left to right on the plan in front of you. Then 161 urban townhomes, those are in the northeast corner, 3 multifamily buildings on the south side of the project, kind of in the center, comprising 271 units total, and then 1 senior living building on the southwest or southeast corner, with 120 units proposed. On the center of the site, just want to note that you'll, and we'll talk about this in more detail, but you're seeing a park area that's roughly 9 acres with stormwater ponding, adding to that open space in the center of the development. So from a land use perspective, this site is currently zoned rural transition. As you know, that is a zoning district that is kind of a holding district for lands that are imminent for development. The future land use map has this land guided as a combination of high-density residential and medium-density residential. And we have a planned unit development proposed, so there'd be a PUD overlay from a zoning standpoint. So when looking at the comprehensive plan, you have a pretty interesting kind of just line between the MDR and the HDR if you look at the site. Generally speaking, the intent when the comp plan was adopted was to concentrate the higher density development towards the south and the east side of the site, which as you can see is where that dark, that brown color is. The orange color is the MDR area, which transitions as you go to the east to low density. Sorry, I should say the west. So here is that preliminary plat. The preliminary plat really just shows you where those property lines are that will be associated with each of these sites. But with the preliminary plat come all the preliminary plans, the development plans, those have been reviewed in detail to whether they meet city ordinances. Really just quickly want to cover planned unit developments in the city do have to meet several different criteria in order to be considered. The first one is whether the property is over 5 acres. That one's met. At least 20% of the development has to be held as open space. That can look like common areas between townhomes and things of that nature. And lastly, the street layout has to maintain the existing street grid or meet the plans for future streets. There are a number of PUD objectives that the applicant is basically in their narrative saying that they are meeting. Those are a range of different things, like providing a mix of different housing options in the city, and doing things like stormwater irrigation. And now I'll just kind of jump into that preliminary plat review. So when we're looking at a preliminary plan set, we are looking at a number of different things, and we'll kind of walk through those here. So here's just a refresher. Here is that overall site plan, and then I'm going to kind of walk through each of the different elements that are being proposed here in a bit more detail. So first, you have the single-family homes. These are in the MDR, medium-density residential part of the subdivision. These are proposed to have 50 feet widths, 50-foot lot widths, which would be meeting the city's minimum. Pretty standard lot detail that's shown here with those lots. Next are those patio townhomes. So these are the townhomes between the single-family homes and the proposed park area, kind of serving as a little bit of a transition as you go to the east. These are a little bit more standard, townhomes, which you'll see around the city. We have 3 apartment buildings shown on the south side of the site. These are, at this point, I think just there's no known developer for these apartments as far as I'm aware. And lastly, if you look at the kind of the southeast corner, you're adding in that senior living or age-restricted apartment building. And then here are what we refer to as those urban townhomes. I just want to make a quick note. What was included in the plans that were reviewed was a urban townhome with 129 units. In fact, the developer did provide a different layout that they actually prefer more. This layout was reviewed with the concept plans and it was reviewed with the environmental assessment worksheet when that was reviewed. So this has been reviewed already by the city. This is the preference for the developer. They're going to be submitting an updated plan set. Generally, the differences are listed on the screen. So 161 units is what they are actually proposing. They're also proposing to have a larger private courtyard. In the site plan that you see on the screen now, you see just over 0.1 acres of private courtyard. So they're looking to increase that area. And they are still meeting the setbacks that would be required in this area from just the zoning code. So there is a little bit of a difference. The units would be a little bit smaller, going from just over 1,000 square feet to 800. I did take a look at the overall site here. If you look at just the portions of the urban townhome part of the development minus the right-of-way, they are meeting the requirements of code to have at least, I think that the requirement is on the next screen. 1,700 square feet approximately per unit. So I also really quickly want to touch base on the density for this development. That's been noted in the staff report. We have, in February, we received a kind of different methodology for calculating density for development from the Met Council. Because this development was planned largely before the Met Council kind of changed that methodology, staff are proposing to use the methodology that this development was applied for under, which is showing here, and it's also indicating that the development would meet the overall density range for this area. So I'm gonna go back to these are the bulk standards, we call them, things like lot area, setbacks, et cetera. This is a planned unit development. The developer is requesting a couple of different flexibilities from the city. So first, just to look at the areas that are highlighted. I won't go over everything here, but just the areas highlighted here. This was in the staff report, so it's a little hard to read up on the screen, but the MDR, so really the single-family home lots, those are proposed at the smallest, on the small end, 5,400 square feet, and they range, some of the larger lots are even over like a quarter or a half acre. So it depends on which lot, but the minimum proposed is 5,400 square feet. The city standard is 7,000. We talked about the urban style townhome area, 800 square feet per unit. And for the multifamily buildings, they are proposing a range of density. So the city's code requires 1,800 square feet per unit of generally space on the property on a per unit basis. So if we go back to the site plan, essentially the developer is requesting some flexibility for these multifamily buildings. They are proposing a private park with the multifamily buildings to help get closer to the city standard. So those are just the flexibilities kind of at a high level that are proposed. We do have some more specific performance standards, we call them. These are things like design for developments in Lake Elmo. And these are generally listed on the screen and they're provided in the staff report. For single-family detached, these are the single-family homes. There's really not a ton of development requirements or design requirements. Parking should be on driveways or in the garage, and primary entrances and facades, the front of the house needs to be basically oriented to the street. For single-family attached, these are townhomes. The city does have more requirements. Buildings have to be smaller than 10 units or the project needs a conditional use permit. The building needs to be fronting a public street. And there need to be shared open spaces of at least 500 square feet per unit in the medium density residential area and 300 in the high density residential. Those are all being met right now. For multifamily buildings in the HDR, parking cannot be located in a front yard, and basically what that means is it can't be located between the building and the street. It's got to be behind the building. There do need to be common open spaces within multifamily projects of at least 200 square feet per unit, and that again is being met. So there are a list of other design standards that are found in the city's design guidelines book. Generally speaking, the site design has been reviewed. The building design for the proposed multifamily buildings and townhomes has not yet been reviewed because they are in a future phase. So what you see on the screen is the proposed phasing for this project as proposed by the developer. So what I haven't mentioned yet is that this project is not next to any existing developments. It's non-contiguous. And so what that means is the developer is going to have some off-site improvements that are required to bring in the utilities and bring in road infrastructure to serve this new development. And so what that's going to look like, if you look on the left side of the screen or the west side, that's bringing in water main, making a water main connection to the west. And then if you look south of this site, the developer will also need to be bringing in water main And in addition to that, they'll have to bring in sewer to serve this property and realign Hudson Road. That realignment has been planned. It's been a kind of a long time coming in that area. And so the developer will be, accomplishing that requirement through their alignment of the utilities serving the project. So that has been a requirement as well. So they're also building Fifth Street North, which is a planned connection from the city's comprehensive plan. Fifth Street North runs generally, if you can see the cursor, which you can't, it runs on the north side of the property, and then as you go to the west, kind of curves down a little bit to the south. So those are the road requirements and infrastructure that are going to be serving this site, and the green area, again, that's the first phase, so that all gets built before those single-family lots can be brought online. So you have single-family and the patio townhomes proposed in phase one. In phase two or future phases, there could be multiple phases. You're looking at the multifamily buildings and the patio townhomes. When those projects are proposed is when that building, the actual design review would take place of the building facades. That's things like materials, entries, etc. Generally speaking, though, I would say that the site design for those parts of the development has been looked at through the number of iterations of the concept plans that have come forward. I just quickly want to touch base on design standards for the patio townhomes, since these are the ones that are going to be built other than the single-family homes in the first phase. So now for the patio townhomes, the form and the facade, there are specific requirements in code, basically requiring that facades front the street. In addition to that, the city code generally requires that townhomes be double fronted, which means that basically, you have a front on a public street or corridor and rear loading the garages and stuff on another street or corridor. One really important requirement within city code is for the building materials. Just to note, this is seen as kind of a higher standard. The city does not allow for vinyl siding in MDR or HDR areas. Okay, so want to shift into tree preservation and some of the other site considerations. So tree preservation, there are a number of existing trees on site. Because of the way that the grading will occur and the way that the development's proposed, those trees would be removed. So there is a mitigation calculation that was provided with their plans and reviewed by the city's landscape architect. The developer is also proposing to replace those trees with new landscaping. This landscaping would be provided throughout the project, and it would, I would note, include trees that will mitigate for the trees that would be removed. Lastly, on this screen, you can see some dark or shaded areas in the common spaces in the townhome apartment areas of the site. The developer is proposing to use stormwater reuse. So they'd be using stormwater as proposed to irrigate the common areas on the site. That has been a common theme in new development in Lake Elmo to help reduce water use from new development. So we've looked at a number of different plans. The landscape architect's memo dated May 18th does list a number of requirements that will need to be met as we move forward in the process, should there be an approval. I do want to also quickly note that buffering, so the apartment buildings shown on the south side of the site, development that occurs south of that, south of those multifamily buildings, if it happens in the future, would need to provide some form of buffering, mitigation between a future use and the apartments. We also looked at parking and traffic. Parking has been reviewed for the uses where we have, within phase one, that includes the single-family homes and the townhome units. Those definitely meet requirements, providing enough parking for both residents and visitors. Where we have a need to review further in the future is definitely for the apartments, where we actually need a specific unit mix to assign a certain parking requirement. So when those projects are proposed and we have a unit mix that's known, that's the time where we can really refine the understanding of what the parking requirements are. So At this time, no flexibility is being requested for parking. As far as traffic goes, this site and area has been guided as medium and high-density residential for quite some time in the city's comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan does kind of plan for the required infrastructure to serve these units with roadway and other infrastructure. The EAW also included a traffic analysis that was reviewed with that part of the project. All right, so access, I just want to talk about a few different things with respect to access. We've talked about needing to realign Hudson Boulevard. That's definitely an important kind of planned realignment and will provide a key access for this development to Manning. There will also be the construction of that portion of 5th Street North through the site, so that those will be the 2 points of access that will serve these units. And I do want to mention, there is an existing grain silo operation on the property just north of this site that kind of creates a challenge for these plans and how that access can be retained. And so here is what is shown in the project plans. You can see that there is quite a long access from what, if you're looking at kind of the right side of this image, that's where the grain silo operation would be, kind of along Manning. And if you go all the way, that's about, I think it's like something like 600 feet you would need to hit before you hit that next intersection. And so that's representative of the city's access spacing requirements. These are a standard for 5th Street North. What's being proposed right now by the developer in conjunction with the property owner to the north that has the grain silo operation is kind of an alternative access for the time being. And so it's a little bit difficult, I apologize, to see on the screen. Let me see if I can get a laser pointer to show up here. All right, so these are both basically the same image on the screen on the left and right. So I'll just go on the right image just so you can follow along. So what's being currently shown here on the aerial image is an existing access onto Manning. As I showed you on the previous screen, what the development would need to do to actually provide access consistent with city requirements is bring an access basically from the west all the way up to this operation here. That doesn't necessarily help retain kind of the current function of the grain silo area. And so, again, as I mentioned, the property owner and developer have worked together on this proposal. So what's currently proposed is an access serving the grain silo operation directly onto Manning. This would be a right out only, or right out. And then serving this grain silo operation from the 5th Street North corridor here would be an access directly from 5th Street North, which would be a city road. So Manning is county, 5th Street North is a city road. They're proposing a right in to the site here. So generally the circulation might look like, semi traffic during those periods of time where they do need to access the grain silos, coming into the site down here, generally coming out here. There may be situations where as things get finalized, they might want to propose a right out for very rare circumstances where a semi might need to go that direction. So that is currently what is being proposed between the developer and that property owner. And so just wanted to talk about a couple of the considerations, and ultimately these will be considerations that are shared with the city council when they review this project. The pros certainly for this proposed access would be that Washington County's actually kind of reviewed this and had the opportunity to comment on it. They are generally supportive. This proposed access arrangement would retain really largely that current function of the grain silo site, which is important to that property owner for sure. And it would be required to get removed when future development occurs, should it occur on the site that has the grain silo operation. So those are some of the pros here. From a con standpoint, if you're looking at this through that lens, you would say that there's, it doesn't meet the city's access spacing standards, which we talked about. There is not necessarily a planned end to this interim condition. And if in the future there are, concerns with the arrangement of this particular area, this intersection, the adjustments could need to be made at city cost. It's hard to say what exactly could create an issue. There could be a number of variables, but generally speaking, those are just some of the considerations, so. All right, moving into sidewalks and trails. So there are sidewalks generally proposed throughout the development. There are trails as well. It's kind of hard to see again on this figure, so I apologize for that, but the city staff has reviewed these sidewalks and trails against applicable requirements that the city has. Number one, you have to have a sidewalk on at least one side of the street. In certain cases, like in high-density areas, a sidewalk needs to be provided on both sides. So on the south side of the site, just north of the multifamily building, there's a red line that's supposed to be kind of showing you where a sidewalk should be added. The other kind of high-level comment that I would provide here is city staff are suggesting the requirement of a trail on the north side of 5th Street North. There's that laser pointer again. That trail corridor should run continuously along the north side of 5th Street North through the project. So that's been kind of a long-term plan for that parkway through this area, eventually providing connectivity up to Oakland Middle School. Parkland dedication. So this project is proposing to dedicate a roughly 9 acres of parkland that would surround 2 stormwater features. One's an infiltration basin, one is a stormwater pond. This part of the development would serve these residential units with parkland, recreation space, and they would satisfy the city's park dedication requirements for this area. I would note that this particular part of the city is within a park search area, so it is for a neighborhood park. So this park would generally meet the criteria for a neighborhood park, particularly in terms of the size, the area of the park. So there have been a number of review comments provided on this development and lots of coordination behind the scenes. The city's fire department, city engineer, city's landscape architect have all reviewed and provided comments that are included in the staff report. South Washington Watershed District is in process for their review of this development. Washington County has also had an opportunity to review. So just a quick summary of the proposed PUD flexibilities by the developer. Number one, minimum lot size. So the area for detached single-family homes, the townhomes, and the multifamily buildings, I should say, and then a side yard setback proposed flexibility for these single-family homes. So there are findings that are required to be created for approval or denial of a project. Those are generally summarized on the screen, and they are included in the staff report. Staff generally feel that this development meets the city's criteria for approval in this part of the kind of south growth area of Lake Elmo. So you have a number of options in front of you. You can recommend approval, approval with conditions, denial, or table. Staff are, again, recommending approval, but with conditions, and so there are 12 conditions that are shown, generally summarized on the screen here and that are in the staff report. I would call you to the kind of the unique conditions that are shown on the bottom. These are the ones that staff really strongly recommend to you. Number one is that should the development be approved, that there be an access plan, kind of a shared access plan approved or agreed upon by the developer and property owner to the north. And certainly they've been working on that. Also, because of the nature of the offsite improvements needed, the city would require easements on the city's standard form with those abutting property owners so that that work can begin and the public improvements can be constructed in that area. Lastly, I did show you the sidewalk and trails, so there are some adjustments needed to those parts of the plans, and just reiterating that stormwater reuse should be a required part of the PUD. So just to note here, a public hearing notice was sent out by the city in May, and mailings were sent to surrounding property owners, as well as adding this project to that push notification list. An example motion has been provided in the report on the screen here for consideration of approval to the city council. With that, I would stand for your questions, and I would also note that the developers team is here to answer questions that you have for them. So, thanks.
Thank you, Nathan. Questions?
I've got a question. You did not refer to the landscape planning not being, they're not being able to recommend it as it is right now. You want to kind of, did you go over that?
Sure.
A little bit in depth, more depth?
Absolutely. So, yes, the landscape architect has a review memo. I'm just going over to the plans here. So number one, tree preservation. They review, when the landscape architect reviews the project, typically they are mostly focused here on the tree preservation plan and the landscaping plan. And so that landscape architect memo basically says that the mitigation for the removed trees, although I think for a development of this size is relatively small, number of replantings required, that those plantings would need to be added to the landscaping plan. So the landscaping plan will need to be revised prior to the city accepting a final plat or allowing the developer to move to the next step. So the proposed conditions for this development do include conformance with that landscape architect memo.
Primarily, one of her concerns was to help with the noise mitigation. Any proposed noise mitigation is one of the things that she strongly emphasized, which is important, being by the freeway.
The 84 trees they're taking out, you're saying they need to incorporate another 84 into the
Yeah, so
development.
there's basically a formula that the city has in code that developers need to follow. It takes the removals, calculates how many caliper inches, and then creates a kind of a formula to require a total number of replantings.
So this isn't reflecting that improvement yet?
No, but it will be required to be conforming, yep.
Could you talk a little bit about the methodology that Met Council is using for the calculations and?
Yes,
That's
so
changed.
that part of the report and just conversation has evolved a little bit here. What you see on the screen is kind of that split between MDR, medium density, and HDR, high density. Before February of this year, the way that we created the calculated density was really very, tried and true. We take the net area, that's the buildable area. The buildable area does not include things like wetlands. There's no wetlands on this site. And then you just take that buildable area, and then that's your net acreage, and that's how you calculate net density. In February, the Met Council came out with new guidelines for implementation of, they called it the MUSA implementation guidelines. But basically, this just changed the formula for how we calculate net density. And they actually did include certain things that, they thought that cities were asking for, which were the ability to net out now stormwater ponds and the ability to net out collector roadways. And so the way that this development was planned and applied for, and even, the developer's gone a long way in terms of having an EAW completed and doing all that, all of the planning work was done under the old methodology. And so when we reviewed the preliminary plat, we realized, the math that the Met Council has effectively changed kind of threw off the calculation here. They were actually shown as being over the density limit when you applied the new math.
Okay, that's what I
And-
was wondering. All right.
Yep, so that was kind of the impact, but we did contact the Met Council. The sector rep told us that we are allowed to use that prior methodology. This development did come in, technically speaking, before the application was made, before the new guidelines were released.
Okay.
What is the proposed population then for this specific site if it was when it's fully completed, if it's fully completed?
So, the development has 679 units. The average household size in Lake Elmo is generally 2.5 people. So, if we have someone that has a calculator handy, that might be the anticipated population.
So 1,900, I'm just doing it in my head.
Sure.
1,697.5.
There we go. Thank you, Sophia.
All right. And water accessibility?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we'll go to that phasing plan. Wrong direction. So if you look at the bottom of the image here, where that green starts, where that green on Hudson Boulevard starts, that's where the water currently terminates. So the developer will be bringing in water main up to the site through Hudson, and they'll also be extending on the west side the water main to loop it.
So then it would just be from that holding tank that's up by Lake Elmo Avenue and 94? Is
Yeah,
that where
or
it'd be coming from?
is there maybe a water tower as well?
A water tower.
So the city engineering team has definitely looked at that, and they haven't voiced any concern over the availability of
And the
water.
sewer, where would sewer be coming from?
So the sewer the sewer will be in Hudson Boulevard. So you see that kind of curving to the south, that's where the sewer line goes. There's an interceptor that goes into the Met Council system on the Hudson Boulevard corridor. I think it might be at Lake Elmo.
How about the property to the west and the south for the realignment of Hudson and Fifth Street? I mean, are those private property owners that are on board with this, or does the developer control
Yeah.
that property as well, or?
That's a great question. The developer has been coordinating with those property owners. One of our conditions for approval would require that they get an easement agreement on the city's, on the city's form. There's a big difference there, right? And so that would allow, number one, for us to understand, yes, they have the consent from those property owners to do the offsite improvements.
Sure.
And then when they're constructing the improvements, since that agreement would be in the city's form, the city would have the ability to go and do inspections and do those types of things.
Gotcha.
Has a traffic study been done on the grain silo operation where effectively you're going to be routing grain trucks through residential with the proposed route to give them access?
Certainly, yeah, certainly an area of concern that's been kind of one of those ongoing areas of discussion. I'm trying to find my access slide. So when we look at the grain silo operation, our understanding based on conversations with the property owner is that most of the semi-traffic will be, and there won't be much traffic per day. Like the peaks for this are relatively minimal in terms of traffic. Most of that traffic would be taking that right south on Manning to access the freeway corridor.
I just know the county has a way of removing access from roads unexpectedly.
So Washington County's certainly been part of this review process. They've indicated that, they've seemed to indicate that they'll be issuing a permit. They will have to issue a permit for the project to be able to move forward for access, so that's how they'll control that. And I will also just note to you, the developers also kind of had to talk with Washington County, so they might have thoughts on that as well.
So the quarter mile isn't applying in this case, because they're giving them an exit out, a right turn.
Yeah, so typically, when you're looking at like permanent new development, you're gonna go for something like quarter-mile spacing or less in some
This is
cases, depending on the context. But because this is a somewhat unique condition with this grain silo being kind of right there and wanting, reasonably to retain their access for their operation, they're asking for some flexibility to the city council.
The developer's cost.
Yeah, the developer will be responsible for reconfiguring the access.
Standards.
Nathan, so with the new Met Council density calculations, this is too dense. The density's above and beyond what's required.
The reason for that is because the developers would technically not be able to net out the stormwater pond and the Fifth Street North corridor. So technically, you're right, but the density functionally hasn't changed from when the city reviewed this before.
Right, but
Yeah.
by the new calculations, we're exceeding the density requirements with the new
Under-
methodology.
That's correct. Under the new
Okay.
guidelines,
Because
that's
where
right.
I'm getting at is then, if we're asking for reductions in spacing with single-family housing, so they can meet those old density requirements, if we've got the ability, is the ability then, because we don't need it to be as dense, to put these spacing back between the houses? between the
To
single-family
make sure I
houses.
understand your question. So are you asking about the PUD flexibilities proposed?
What's that?
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, I think if we're looking at, the concern is one, we have an MDR requirement for detached single-family home of 7,000 square feet, right?
Correct.
They're asking for a variance of 5,400. And then also within spacing between those homes, we've got a 10-foot requirement, and they are asking for 5 feet. And are they asking for that in order to meet these density requirements that were calculated with the old methodology?
I see what you're saying. I think when you consider what they're asking for, it's not, it's sort of, I guess, modest with the nature of the development that's proposed here. I think part of the reason they're asking for flexibility is to be able to have that large park area in the center of the development. This has been a real focus from concept on forward.
Yep.
For them to fit the park in there and hit the density ranges and all of that stuff, they've had to kind of squeeze a little bit some on the edges a little bit, some of those units. And so I think that's created a little bit of a challenge. If you look at it absent the park area, I think they would probably be meeting.
But I would counter and say, with the new methodology for calculation, even with the park area.
Okay.
We don't need the debt.
I guess, to be clear, what they're
Yep.
asking for flexibility from is not the comprehensive plan and the density ranges
Okay.
therein. It's
All
the
right.
zoning code.
All right.
And so they're consistent, the zoning generally and comp plan are generally in alignment, but in this case, you have lot areas that are, kind of tricky to work with for them. So
Right.
I'll let them speak more to that. That's
Yeah.
not necessarily for me to speak anymore to,
Fair.
so.
And is that calculation done, which is the proposal in front of us here, or that new higher urban townhome proposal with more units?
So where's the density calculation done, or
Yes, which, the density calculation and number of units, is, we have the proposal in front of us here, and you'd mentioned that they discussed a higher density with 160 something units.
Oh, I see. So the units that are different from what's in the preliminary plat plans are the urban townhomes, which are on the north east side of the project, so that area. They're in the HDR, the high-density part of the site. So when we look at density, though, we don't look at one individual part of the development. We have to look at the overall area of HDR, high-density residential, which in this case is kind of a unique shape. So I would also say that part of the reason for those 4 concept plan reviews is because they have a really funny line here, and the developer worked really hard to not propose a comprehensive plan amendment so that this development would be able to kind of use the existing plans that the city has in place. And so, they have definitely had a challenge in trying to meet that boundary, and so that's part of why it feels like they're kind of high on one side and kind of low on the other, and that kind of bears out when you look at the density ranges here.
We want to hear from the developer?
Yeah, one more question on the Manning there. The trail, is there going to be a trail on Manning at all?
That is a good question. Right now, as far as we know, if you look at an aerial, there's no trail along the west side of Manning. So at some point in the future, the county may have a trail. And in fact, I think usually the county's standard is to have a trail on both sides.
Oh, okay, so that'll be up to the county. All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Try and find a site plan for the developer to speak to. All right.
Does the developer want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. My name is Mario Cucciarella. I'm the owner of Maplewood Development Company, and just had a few comments since there's been a lot here. So first of all, let me answer the question on the trail before I forget, because a lot of things come up. The county is going to require a trail section on the eastern end of the property, but the west side of Manning, so we already know that. And the
Okay.
ditch can be constructed such for stormwater management that the trail can be constructed, and we already know that, so we'll be able to do that. Just a couple of points I just want to make. I know you're not familiar with us. you know, I am proud of the fact that we've done a lot of master plan communities, we do a lot of big projects. You know, we did the Willowbrook project down here in Oakdale, Amber Fields down in Rosemont, and Southwest Crossroads up in Maple Grove, and many lots in Woodbury, of course. So we do have some experience, and I do think there's some value in having one master plan for an area like this that, you know, you can really see and know what the future is gonna hold for those sections of the site. So there's some value, I think, in master planning. I do wanna say that, you touched on it a little bit, but, you know, this one really is about how the Met Council has guided this area. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, but I think there's about 100 acres roughly in Lake Elmo that the Met Council has designated for this kind of higher density use. About 76 of those acres is this, and that's kind of where it sits. It's been a difficult process because, you know, frankly, we probably would have proposed something a little bit more conventional in terms of the homes and the layout and so forth, but that just wasn't possible for this site based on the Met Council requirements for this. So we went through a lot of iterations, and I think that, you know, I think it's a good plan for what's required here and the mix of housing, along with some of the other issues that the Met Council foists on something like this, and they're a little harder to get through. We do have considerable amount of off-site improvements. I think these are benefits to the community, the realignment of Hudson Boulevard and the extension of the sewer, the water main to the west that allows for looping of the lines that provides water pressure for these areas, sufficient without dead ends and some of those things. We're fortunate in that I'm the owner of Bel Air Site Work, and so we do a lot of earthwork and utilities throughout the metro area and other sites around the country. So, you know, we have the ability to do that kind of work, and it does benefit, frankly, your constituents. You know, generally speaking, I think we've got a good plan. It's been through a lot. I think the Scretons to the north of us have done a nice job of reviewing what we've presented to them in terms of trying to provide them with access for their grain operation. The county agrees with us. These are sporadic uses. I know you're talking a little bit about spacing, but the hard fact is that these are farm uses that don't happen every day of the week, and I think certainly the county has recognized that. We've got a great park plan. I think it's gonna look fantastic when it's done. We do a lot of, you know, we built 40 acres worth of parks for Rosemont here just recently. This one has a chance to be equally as nice as that, maybe on a little smaller scale. So I really like this plan in that regard. And I guess I would stand for some other questions, and I do have some of our other staff here who's been more involved in some of the specifics of the site, so we can certainly help to answer questions for you if you need to be.
I'll go, since you were just talking about the park. Could you describe what you're planning for the park there?
Well, we do have a plan that was shown on one of the previous iterations, but there is room for soccer fields. There's 2 of them up at the north end there. There's some pickleball areas. There is off-street parking, so the public can access this. So it's got some nice uses to it, and you know, it's really gonna be an active park. The area had designation for some smaller areas here, but without the development of the areas to the south and north, we took that on as part of this project as well, so.
Are you planning any type of a pavilion for shade?
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Are
hear
you
you.
planning any type of pavilion for shade?
No, these are gonna be,
Yeah, Chair and members of the commission, so just to jump in on the parks process, it's been a minute since we've seen an actual park within a development, but, so just to refresh you on the process for that, typically, when the city receives park dedication from a development, the city will begin a process after the park has been effectively platted and provided to the city. So the city will manage the process of programming that park itself. And so there will be opportunities for people to, you know, say what they'd like to see within that park, certainly. So I just wanted to kind of refresh the commission on that process.
I hear a lot about wanting pavilions in the parks because of the sun, so.
Yeah,
just
makes sense.
Put that on the list.
The city will maintain the park?
Yeah.
And somebody mentioned something about a private park, where was that? Right over there,
Courtyard.
Southwest corner.
southwest corner, that outlot. Yeah. I can understand your frustrations with the Met Council, I've had those for years.
I'd be curious on price points and what would be the footprint that you're estimating for the size of the homes that are gonna have the 5-foot side yards?
We can certainly let the builders speak to that. Lennar is partnering with us on this in the construction of those. We can certainly give you some square footages and some general price ranges if you'd like. Joe, you want to speak to that?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Joe Jablonski here as a partner in this community. Questions on price points and building types. Let's start with the single-family homes. Those would be smaller. They are 2-car garages. We have them roughly priced from $420 to about $475 for 1,600 to 2,500 square feet. They are on more of an urban style home site. We're prepared for that. And that's why you kind of see the square footages that you do there. The patio style townhomes, just to the right of that, those are about 1,750 square feet on average. And their price points will be about $360 to $375, starting in that type of range. And then on the right-hand side of the plan, the urban-style townhomes, they're about 1,900 square feet up to about 2,000, a little bit bigger. They do have rear-load garages, so the fronts of the buildings actually face out towards the primary streets on those. And those price points are about $385 to about $430, starting price points. So we kind of are hitting a spectrum of different price points and building types and things out here, and with the densities and the space that we have, I think it'll be a really neat and interesting, different kind of housing stocks out for a community like this.
And will the single-family homes have basements?
Were these slab on grade? There'll be some that will and some that will not, depending on how the final grading works out.
As it currently sits, there's no developer for the senior living or the 3 apartment buildings? Or should you say a builder?
Typically, we attract different builders for the senior versus the market rate product. And those will have to come back through the process for, once the vertical construction is known. And once our builder for that is identified. Pretty typical in the process. That doesn't happen overnight. It's
Yeah.
gonna take some time to develop a site and then see who's interested in that.
I assume this is gonna be a homeowners association?
Yes.
And probably too early to ask, but do you have any idea if rentals will be allowed in those bylaws?
Well, originally, the northeast part of the site was designated for rental in this, the 161 homes you have there. It's difficult to, write in specific exemptions for rentals, but, they would be done just on a one-off kind of basis. So if somebody wants to rent their unit for a time.
I've seen it where, only 10% of units of all units are allowed to be
Yeah,
rented and.
We haven't talked about that, but that's certainly something we would consider.
Okay.
Has there been any discussion about public transit in this area, it being so high-density housing?
Well, there was some plans in the past on the Four Corners site just to the south of us, which we'll be working in, but I haven't heard any update to that. And I understand that fell through some time ago when that was proposed. Is that correct? I don't recall.
Yeah, I think there are some micro-transit opportunities in this part of the city that would serve folks that need kind of the transit to the Gold Line, which provides them with kind of direct access to some Gold Line access potentially, but no fixed route transit at this moment.
I find that interesting.
Did you want to expand on that?
I can, I guess. This was supposed to be like a commercial park at one time, and all of a sudden it got transitioned into this tight housing. And I do happen to live beside one of these new townhome type things, and right off the bat, I'll tell you, there's not enough parking for anybody. Does become a big problem. People don't always want to accept that and realize it, but this is going to be tight. And the Gold Line, yes, I was there, Met Council was here proposing the Gold Line to come down to Lake Elmo to Manning Avenue quite a few years ago. And the council, in their wisdom, said, no, that wasn't a good idea. And so then they went kind of from Oakdale down into Woodbury, and it's very, not utilized very well at this point in time, nor has it been the last, year or so. So that's
All
all
right.
I know to do.
If there aren't any more questions, because we've got a full agenda here, just trying to
Yep,
move
let's
things
move
forward. Any more questions for the developer? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll open up the public hearing, and then after that, we're gonna have discussion before we move to a motion. If you'd like to speak, I believe did anybody fill out a form?
Yep.
If not, that's fine. Is it already comes forward, or we need still fill it out?
Yeah, if you want to come forward, name and address.
Name and address, please.
We need a motion to open the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, I haven't, thank you very much, that's why you're here.
Motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is open at 7:27.
Thank you. My name is Alex Screeton. I am one of the family members who owns and farms the property to the north that you've been talking a little bit about today. As I think that was described by Nathan, that's our bin site, and so that's really important to our operation because more or less all our grain goes through that. I think Nathan did a good job of summarizing sort of what we think is a workable plan. I think the developer has worked with us, and I think we've come forward with a proposal that works for us. And so I just wanted to make that point first and foremost. We appreciate that, and that's something that I think we can work with. The only other thing I really wanted to say today was, as a part of that proposed access plan, that means we're taking a lot of lefts on Manning onto Fifth Street, and then rights into that bin site. And so we've got a proposed trail there that would cut across that access. And as I understand it, that trail can include bikes, e-bikes, pedestrians, et cetera. And so we're a little concerned about having trucks and equipment and other things coming in at the same place as where we're having pedestrians and other people on this trail. And as we understand it right now, there isn't currently, that's sort of a trail to nowhere in terms of there's nothing along Manning, there's nothing across the street. We understand it sounds like there might be something on the east of this, there might be a trail. And so it'd be preferential to us that either we wait and if and when our property develops to build out that trail or move it to the south. And that's specifically just that portion between Limerick Parkway and Manning. We just have concerns about safety there.
Sure.
That's it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak on this project? All right,
Motion to close the public hearing?
thank you.
Second.
And we will close the public hearing at 7:29.
Call a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, call to question.
Oh, you call.
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion. Public hearing closed at 7:29. Thank you. And with that, do we have a motion on the table?
I'll move to recommend the city council approve the preliminary plat and PUD as requested by Maplewood Development on the subject property based on the findings of fact and recommended conditions of approval listed in the staff report.
Second.
All right, discussion.
There's been a lot of work that has gone into this plan, and a lot of work with Met Council to make it happen. I do like that the price point, I mean, houses are expensive now, but we're not putting in $1.5 million houses. There's affordable houses. I don't love how close they are together, but it sounds like there's not a whole lot with the medium density and the high density. It's kind of what it's supposed to be. So for those reasons, I'm for this development.
Thank you.
I think it's really a well-designed plan. I like that there's multiple different types of housing in there and the really big park in the middle. I think it's turning out really nice. Good job.
I also really like this plan. I thought it was really thought out. I really enjoy the parks in the middle and the different uses that that park will bring.
Anyone else?
To me, it's extremely dense, but you're trying to work with however you do. I didn't really care for, adding the extra 29 units instead of, to the area, because it just makes it tighter. But nevertheless, it's something we have to keep working on. I do have a concern on good water going to everybody in time, and I guess it's something that's gonna come get us.
Look at generally the growth in the communities around it, especially Woodbury, that they do have high-density housing in that area, so it kind of fits the mixed use that is in that corridor right by 94, as well as there's plenty of infrastructure that it seems developers sometimes struggle with in Lake Elmo in terms of access to, especially sewer interceptors and traffic considerations the further into the more rural areas that haven't been as intensely developed.
I like the project. I know they've worked on it. It's been a long 4 years since the first time I came across it, whether it was watching a council meeting or a workshop. So I appreciate the work that you guys have done, putting this together and trying to meet everyone's objectives, knowing that that's not always possible. With that, should we call the question here? The motion on the table, which is to move to recommend the city council approve the preliminary plat and PUD as requested by Maplewood Development on the subject property based on the findings of fact and recommended conditions of approval listed in the staff report. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. When will this go to council?
So we are looking at, we're looking at the council date, so that's TBD for now.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Before we move to the next item, again, if you would like to speak during the public hearing for the InWood commercial property development, we ask that you fill out a form in the back and get that to Sophia. We'll follow the same format in which we will take a presentation from staff. We'll ask questions, and then we will open it up for the public hearing.
It's okay. I know. I'm working on it. I'm working on myself every day.
All right, Sophia, next item is InWood Commercial Preliminary Plat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant for tonight's application is Vadnais Associates. The property is Outlot K of InWood. It is just over 17 acres. It is currently zoned commercial with a partial shoreline overlay. In the city's comprehensive plan, it is guided as commercial. Little history on this area. It was included in the 2014 InWood Master Development as an anticipated commercial area. And the request before you tonight is for a 5-lot commercial subdivision. Just to get your bearings on the parcel, north of this parcel is 10th Street. To the south is 5th Street and Quick Trip. To the west is Golf Course, City of Oakdale, and InWood Avenue. And then to the east is the InWood residential component. So this is the proposed plat, and it is flipped on its side due to the length of the parcel. So north is on the left side, south is on the right side. It is a pretty simple subdivision. It includes one north-south street connection, one east-west street connection, and I will note that these curb cuts are already in the streets due to that 2014 master plan. And then it is 5 commercial lots. For an application like this, staff is reviewing land use and zoning, bulk standards, tree preservation and landscaping, grading, stormwater and wetland impacts, public infrastructure, and park dedication. And then I will note that this is not a PUD, so there are no flexibilities being requested. They're meeting all of our zoning regulations. So specific items to highlight for this request include land use and performance standards. So the application before you tonight is not proposing any tenant approvals, so no buildings, no parking lots, no users. Those will all come forward at a future date and receive necessary review and land use approvals at that time. So they did ghost plat buildings on some of the plans. That's just to show that the lots could fit a parking lot in a building, but that's not necessarily the layout that would be at the end of the day. The next item to review is traffic access and parking. So again, there are 2 streets, one north-south, one east-west. There are 2 county access points with this proposal and 1 city road access. The right-of-way is 60-foot wide and the proposed street is 28-foot wide. And again, because there are no tenants, we would review off-street parking based on the use at the time the tenant is proposed. There is no signage proposed here, so we would review that at the time with the tenants. And park dedication for commercial is a set fee based on the acreage of the lot, so we'd be looking at just over $100,000. And then stormwater management, so again, this parcel was anticipated to be commercial in that 2014 master plan, and as such, these stormwater facilities have capacity built into them to accommodate for this impervious surface. So looking at shoreland overlay, because it is within the shoreland overlay, the parcels are only allowed 30% impervious surface, which is hard cover, so buildings, parking lots, sidewalks, anything where rain can't get immediately into the ground. And this is far less than our typical commercial development. Your typical commercial land use allows up to 75% hard cover. So just by being in the shoreland overlay, you're gonna have a lot more green space on these parcels than you otherwise would. And then a note that because it is in a natural environment shoreland overlay, a CUP is required for the commercial uses here. So looking at landscaping, there are minor revisions required to the landscape plan, and no tree preservation plan is required here because there are no significant trees since the site was mass graded in 2014. There are boulevard trees that would be required at the time of subdivision and improvements here, and species include maple, hackberry, lotus, coffee tree, oak, elm, linden, spruce, pine, crabapple, and lilac. And then just a note on screening and buffering, since that was I received a few questions on that. So landscaping and screening will be required on each lot as they develop. There's really nothing to screen at this point since there are no buildings or parking lots with this proposal. So this slide further illustrates the landscaping that is in this area. So the purple polygon is the existing trees that were planted in that original residential development. So those trees are 8 to 10 years old, probably at this point. And then the green trees along the boulevards would be the ones that are installed with this application before you this evening. So those trees would run north-south adjacent to the existing trees, and then east-west on that new connection. And then the red area is just a general layout of where buffering would be needed for the tenants, so likely berming and landscaping. So all 3 of those layered on each other is your screening between the proposed commercial uses and the residential. So this application was sent out for agency review. We received comments from the fire department regarding drive lanes, access points, signage, hydrants, fire suppression, addressing, EMS systems, NOx systems, and electric vehicle charging. I did already touch on the landscape architect memo, but we can circle back if needed. The DNR provided comments on the impervious surface limit and the CUP requirement within that shoreland overlay district. The city of Oakdale would like to maintain a full intersection at that 9th Street proposal, which is proposed. The Washington County provided a memo or a note that they have addressed the intersection concerns that they outlined in their November 2025 memo. The South Washington Watershed District has indicated the applicant is working on their permitting and review requirements. And then as this moves into final plat, the city attorney would need to review and provide a plat opinion. So staff is recommending 4 findings of fact. The first is that the request is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and future land use map. Second is that it complies with the subdivision regulations. Third is that it meets our zoning code requirements. And fourth is that it's consistent with our design standards. And staff is also recommending 16 conditions of approval. Pretty much all of these are standard since it is not a PUD with no flexibilities. Those relate to review memos, agreements, fees, permits, prelim plat expiration, and future reviews. And then a public hearing was sent to surrounding property owners on May 18th, published in the local paper on May 22nd, and it was also, we sent it out through that new push notification method on the city's website. We received 2 written items. Alan and Lou Stoker, 8680 Upper 7th Place, provided comments in support of the development, but requested consideration for screening of vehicle headlights in addition to tree plantings. There was also a petition that was submitted by 11 different residential parcels, which noted concerns on traffic, light, and noise. They requested a soundproof wall or structure and traffic calming methods. And then I will note that right before the meeting, we did receive additional pages of signatures. So staff is recommending approval with conditions, and I can stand for any questions, and we do have the developer here this evening.
Sophia, at one time I knew that our guidelines required a fence or masonry wall in between a less intensive and more intensive use. That's since changed, hasn't it? Is the fence still required or no?
They need to achieve 90% opacity and at least 6 feet in height, and that could be through mixed methods, berming, fencing, and landscaping. In this case, because they don't have any users at this point,
Right.
there's nothing to screen. That is something that would be required as the tenants come in.
Okay.
So it would be on each individual tenant's responsibility. And because they're gonna require a CUP anyway, they're gonna come through this body,
Correct.
yeah, for each use. All right.
Could you go back to the slide with the berm,
With the,
the red mark for the berm?
so it's not necessarily a berm, it's just showing generally where landscaping, fence,
Landscape.
yeah, so it could
Okay.
be anything,
That provides 90% opacity.
correct.
At 6 feet, yeah.
At 6 feet high.
I guess what I'm wondering about is what's going to block 9th Street from those 2 houses, number 11 and 12, since there's nothing there. Those seem to be the ones that are going to have the greatest impact.
Could you say that one more time?
The homes on Irving Circle, number 11 and 12, they're right where 9th Street
In the gap?
North comes in.
It's
Yeah.
possible that the red area is just a general line that I had drawn on here. It's possible that it could curve down to block headlights as they turn in.
And the green on there are trees that are proposed that are going to be put in by the
Correct.
developer.
Correct.
Is
And
it,
what's
They
the
all kind of
purple-
stack on each other
And
to
the
achieve
purple
that
is
screen.
already existing landscaping on those lots.
Correct.
is there anything that says the screening couldn't be done on the north side of Irene?
In the purple area,
Correct.
Should be,
it's off
East side.
the developer's property, so they need to
Sorry.
get consent.
East side of Irene, my bad. I forgot we're flipped.
So it's off the developer's property, so they need to get consent. I think part of that's a city pond. So we'd have to work out some logistics there.
then you're running into personal property. And then that would be.
Yeah.
probably, yeah.
Well, we're talking about the 9th Street with cars pulling in. You can't screen where the opening 9th Street hits Irene.
Running there with their headlights
Yeah.
all the time.
That's why I was just wondering if you could put something on the east side of Irene. But if that's not the developer's property, then
We
they
can't do
can't
it.
do it. But if they're putting trees in along the road, you could have a really nice arborvitae wall there.
Or something decorative that just is a buffer to block the lights. That might be something to add.
If people are sensitive to different decibel ratings and lights and so on, which would be going in and out. It would be very disgusting.
Any more questions for Sophia?
So we talk about when the tenants decide to build their building, but ultimately, still, the developer is still owning everything. I mean, the tenants would be leasing, correct?
I'll let the developer speak to that. I believe they're selling the lots.
Okay.
But each of those will go through a review, and we'll have an opportunity to talk about,
They're gonna have to come here for CUP because
Yep.
of the watershed district.
right, so each of those lots will have a review, and we'll.
Correct, they'll have a
homeowners
public
can
hearing
come back.
notice and review, and the sites will be more fleshed out than they are right now.
And is there a trail proposed along InWood there?
Let's see, so they are providing the corridor there, and they are also providing a trail connection in, let's see if I can get the laser pointer up here.
Probably from Fifth Street to up to 10th.
Mm-hmm, I see it there.
It's not coming up for me, but running north-south, so starting at Fifth Street on Irene Avenue, they're proposing a trail that comes up on the east side all the way up to an existing trail that stubs by the city's pond. So they're also doing an internal trail.
Nothing
Looks
on,
like there's a-
nothing on InWood, though.
It looks like there's a trail on the west side, and it says 4-foot turf mow strip along the back of trail.
Bottom right says 8-foot bituminous trail.
Correct, so that's within the county's requirements is a trail along InWood.
That's a future, that's not a part of this development, that's something the county would
I
put
don't
in then,
recall off
or?
the top of my head. I believe you're dedicating the, correct, north-south on InWood.
It's not part of the plan now. It was discussed to be easily possibly.
Correct, so they're dedicating the necessary room for it, but
Okay.
the construction is not included with this.
Perfect.
Is it sidewalk or trail along Irene, or both?
Not a trail,
Neither?
it's a sidewalk,
It's a sidewalk?
Yeah.
All right,
Concrete.
concrete.
cool. Any other questions for staff? We'd like to hear from the developer, please.
Hello, Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to present this.
Can you pull the microphone close? Thank you. There we go.
I'm Judy. I'm one of the owners, and this is Dan, who is also one of the owners, and we're very hands-on. This land was, the original PUD was developed with my father back 10, 12 years ago, and he has since passed on, and we are just getting to the commercial area of it now.
Sure. Any questions?
There's one already interested in the cafe, the gaming cafe. You've got one tenant already.
Correct. So even, we have the 4 of the lots as ghost plans, and we are getting more specific on the southernmost parcel, basically to help them along. So, but they would still have to go through the whole process of getting their approval with you.
Have you had any conversations with the residents to the east?
The residents?
The homeowners to the east?
No, I
Okay.
have not had any direct contact. no.
Okay. All right, that's all we got.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for your time.
Yeah. All right, and with that, if I can get a motion, we can open the public hearing.
Make motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we'll open the public hearing for the InWood Commercial Development at 7:49 PM. Thank you. I've got 2 people who've chosen to speak. When I call your name, you can come up and give your name and address, and you have 6 minutes, and I'll let you know when you hit 5. Again, we are here just to listen. We aren't here to answer questions, nor is staff, but it's important that you get the opportunity to express your opinion, your voice, and your concerns. And with that, I'll start with Paul Pryor.
Chair and Commissioners, good evening. I'm a little too tall for this. I had 3 items I wanted to address. The first one, I was talking with Sophia earlier about this. The berm coming in along the purple there, especially when you come in on 9th, that's not more than 3 feet high or so. If you go up 5th Street, just past the entrance to development, that hill, that berm is like 10, 12 feet high. And it's got trees and bushes and shrubbery on it, okay? That prevents the lights from going into the back of those houses on 5th Street. And on 10th Street, there is a berm starting, but it goes away pretty quick before you get up to Island. Straight ahead from 9th Street, those trees there, if they lose the leaves, there's no blocking the light coming into your house. And coming in off of 10th Street, the house number 4, 5, and 7, and 8, those cars come in there, especially in the winter, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, it's dark, and they're gonna get hit with the lights, headlights, bright or dim. Coming in off of 5th Street, it's not gonna be so bad. You look at the houses 12, 13, 14, 15 there, and they're up on top of a retaining wall that has to be about 15 to 18 feet high on the east, or the north side of that pond, that holding pond there, okay? So my question for the commission is, why aren't we building a berm or continuing that retaining wall or a portion of that retaining wall so the headlights aren't going into those homes? I would think a fence on top of a berm, a sufficient berm, not just a 3-foot knoll. I mean, a car could lose control. We've seen that happen before and just drive into somebody's backyard. That would not be good. The next item is, what's the plan for lighting? We talked about that with Sophia. There is no plan for lighting at this point for the parking lot. The developers will have to come up with that, I guess. My thought is, I worked for the city of St. Paul Parks and Recreation for 47 years, built numerous recreation centers around the city. Every resident said, the tennis court lights, the parking lights, the field lights, turn them away from our house. Put shields on them, protect our windows, we don't want lights in the front yard. 2 or 3 months later, hey, can you turn those lights towards my house? Between the houses, a little more security. So people don't know what they really want. But if we look at the lights, for example, Washington County, the Lake Elmo Park Reserve, the ski trail, I'm a pilot, I fly over that all the time when I come in at night to Lake Elmo. You can see that trail, and those are dim lights, but you can see that bright as day from the airplane. So I'm thinking we can find some happy medium with the lighting, not to have it so bright shining into the homes. On the other hand, it should be bright enough and enough lighting that they can cover the driveway on whatever that street's gonna be called there. I don't know what that's called, North something Avenue? Irene, there we go. The last one is the trail connection below the wall, just to the south of house 12, 13, 14, and there, between there and the pond. There's a retaining wall, again, 15 to 18 feet high, and there's a trail below that going into the neighborhood. Is that trail gonna be connected to a sidewalk or a path or any trail along Irene there? That would be the question, to connect the neighbors to the businesses if they so choose to use it. That's all I had.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Dolly Ladner.
Good evening. I'm Dolly Ladner, 994 Irving Court North. I'm the house right next to 10th Street there. Couple of questions. One was regarding the walking path. Right now, we get people walking across our berm, kind of down into our backyard. And so there is a concern of safety and privacy with Irene 15 feet from our property. I would support some sort of a wall for privacy, security. and noise. Some issues many of the residents are asking about where the developer will place the buildings. Will the parking be in front toward InWood, or will the parking be behind toward our homes?
It's hard to hear.
Okay. And Sophia addressed the new trees between Irene and the current property owners. Again, I would reiterate a concern and a request for something more substantial to keep walkers out, especially if a trail system is built in this development. And then I have one more comment. The May issue of the Business View magazine focused on Lake Elmo, and it was very well done. We live in a great little community. Lake Elmo is described as a growing community that blends rural character with thoughtful strategic development. It's evolving while preserving a small town feel. One of the other comments was the developers are taking, or the city, excuse me, is taking a deliberate approach, focusing on where and how growth happens. It's expanding residential areas and park systems, with the city balancing new opportunities with longstanding priorities, ensuring that change supports the character residents value rather than replacing it. That balance between growth and preservation has become the guiding principle behind nearly every planning decision in the city. It is reflected not only in zoning and land use policies, but also in how the city engages with residents and stakeholders at every stage. From city leadership, this is not just a planning strategy, it's a commitment to residents. Developments are designed to integrate with the surrounding environment and support the broader goal of walkable, connected neighborhoods, ensuring that growth enhances rather than disrupts the existing community fabric. So my hope is that these aren't just printed words, and that you will consider our requests. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any other sheets. If you'd like to speak.
Yeah, I'm not on the agenda, but.
But then I need you to come to the, I need you to come to the podium, sir. I need your name and your address, please. Thank you.
My name is Dan Morales. I live at 8669 Lower 8th Place. And looking at the slide here, I just want to fill in some information that you need to know. Where it has proposed trees, our house basically, are about 8 homes are right, there's a pond behind us. There are 8 homes back there. And where it has the existing trees, if you were to go between 10th and 5th Street, there's probably maybe a total of 8 trees that are scattered. There'd be one here, 20 feet later, another 5, 100 feet later, another 3 or 4. But what I'm looking at is, I know they're proposing to adding more trees, but I honestly don't believe that that will fix the problem where we'll have, as the gentleman was mentioning earlier, the lights. If you're on Irene, the proposed street Irene is above the pond, and the homes behind there are lower. So you're looking at Irene being higher than the homes behind you. Right now, when you have cars coming between Quick Trip, which is on 5th, and InWood, coming out of the lot, they're right glaring, the lights are glaring because of the homes being a little lower than 5th Street. Can you imagine now on Irene Street, cars coming, especially if they're looking at the proposed buffering, being on the other side of where the homes are? So basically, you're saying, this is Irene, you're the back of the development there between 5th and 10th. So the lights are gonna be heading this way towards you on Irene. because the homes are down lower. So if they're proposing to put a buffer, the buffer should really be on the other side of Irene. So at least there'll be a buffering from the headlights coming from, that are going on Irene. The other issue is, someone mentioned when we were having a conversation several days back, that during the period of the construction, traffic is going to be rerouted. Obviously, they can't go through Irene, so there's only one way to go to between 5th and 10th. It's either InWood or Island Trail, which is right in the middle of our development. So you have people coming, traffic coming between 5th and 10th. And again, it depends on how long the project is going to last. But if it's going to last an average, maybe a year, we're going to have a lot of folks coming down Island Trail, which is a community residential area, which you're hoping they'll go no more than 25 miles. But you and I know that's not going to happen when people want to get on between 5th and 10th. So we have a negative right there when it comes time to building the project. So those are basically the things I'm looking at, is the traffic being rerouted and people taking the shortcut between 5th and 10th, which means Island Trail, which means the residents there are going to be having some possible traffic interruption. And what else? Buffering trees, I think that's added. That'd be great, but again, that wall should be on the other side of Irene to eliminate the lights coming down on Irene. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak?
So, my name is Tim Dwyer. I'm at 8644 Irving Circle North. I share a similar concern to what Dolly had presented. So I have the back lot that's on the berm in the purple. It's not as much of effect of the lighting issue of the lights coming into the development. My concern is the security of I think of fencing, a consistent fencing from 10th Street to 5th Street would be providing very good buffer for privacy, security, and then also the issues here that are associated with noise and lighting. I think that would be a very easy, a very affordable solution. I think it would be good in conjunction with the proposed trees and also for the aesthetics of the subdivision itself. My concern as being a property owner on the back is mostly the security of that. We currently do have people that come up in there right now. They're just manually walking through that vacant property. Now that we would have the proposal of these tenants here, that would be a concern for me. And I think it would be a very easy, affordable way to provide a very adequate solution. So that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
And with that, all in favor?
Aye.
And with that, we'll close the public hearing at 8:03 PM. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could correct some information that I had previously stated. So there is a sidewalk that's running on the west side of Irene Avenue, and then a trail segment partially from the south halfway up and connecting to that existing InWood Trail.
Okay.
And then they are proposing trails along the county roads, but those details would need to be worked out during final plat.
All right. So the trail would come from the north side of the pond and then cut south back down to 5th Street?
Correct.
Okay.
To
Doesn't
the
go north.
existing network.
What's that?
It would just tie into the existing network. It would loop. It would not go north.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Sophia. All right. Do we have a motion to discuss?
Motion to discuss?
Nope. I need a be the motion.
Recommend
approval.
approval.
There we go.
Of the preliminary plat requested by Vadnais Associates on the subject property based on the findings of fact and recommended conditions of approval listed in the staff report.
Second.
I have a second. Discussion.
think having that that 90% opacity buffer that's currently proposed on the west side of Irene, if there would be a way they could move it to the east side of Irene to not only buffer parking lot lights, but traffic lights and pedestrian traffic. So basically just switching it to the other side of Irene instead of being in the parking lots of the proposed businesses would address a lot of the public comments we've seen
Are
tonight.
you saying shift it to the east?
Yep, shift it to the east, so shift it to
Side.
the other side of Irene, so it is contiguous and offers a barrier between Irene and the residences. It may require Irene to be pushed over a little bit because, you know, the city and the developer can't put anything on already existing private property. But just, moving the buffer to the other side of the road would address a lot of the concerns, especially with noise, lights, sound, from the businesses.
Building off of that, I wanted to ask Sophia, so what is the setback requirement for the west side of those buildings from InWood? Could that street potentially be moved to the west and the setback still have enough room for the setback and the parking in the buildings there?
I believe there would be enough room for the building setbacks. The concern that I would have is the access curb cuts are already installed in the street. So the street geometries, I'm not sure how those would play out. That would be subject to engineering review. And then the boulevard currently is not large enough to fit a berm. So reconsiderations would need to be done there. And then also by making a larger boulevard, you're making smaller lots and they're already capped at 30%, so you'd be further reducing their buildable area. But that's something for the developer to maybe take a look at.
I definitely think a berm or a landscape feature rather than something along the lines of a fence that requires maintenance and then who owns it after the fact if these are going to be sold. So find something that is natural and durable and doesn't require a large amount of maintenance.
Couple things that were brought up. Is it possible to do a no construction traffic through that island road when the construction goes on so that they don't have that traffic coming through there? Is that standard?
I'm not sure when there would be construction traffic driving through there. The construction to build the street would be off of Fifth Street and the county road, and then once those streets are in, the tenant construction would be done off of Irene Avenue. I don't know when it would be directed
Right, there wouldn't be any
through.
need for construction traffic going through the
Correct.
middle, from Fifth to 10th, along the island or whatever that road is through the middle of development. Okay.
Yeah, the elevation of those homes in there next to Irene, that is definitely something to think about in terms of providing them some sort of a buffer there. I mean, you're going from residential to commercial. There's really, I mean, it just seems like there should be something there. I'd be in favor of this proposal with an amendment to it.
Yeah, these transition things are challenging for everybody, as we well know. And we do still have the sky ordinance, dark sky ordinance, so that should help a little bit on the lighting. The noise and the safety, and privacy. It is important to those of us who live here, and it isn't always thought about whenever people are doing commercial. And it's just something, coniferous trees probably would be a good buffer too. And I did read in here that some of the trees have died, and perhaps, I don't know what the replacement protocol is anymore, whether it's so many years they have to die within, or they get replaced, or if they're automatically replaced, or how that goes.
I think it's important, understand the pond on the south half of this is owned by the city, and then you're against private residences all the way going north, correct? Yeah. So if there's mitigation work along the pond, that's truly the city's responsibility. If there are lost trees.
Trees, yeah, okay. We wouldn't need a berm over in that area.
And I definitely feel for the residents that purchased these homes as part of a master plan development, but residences were put in first and business comes second, so the expectations of maybe not knowing the development.
But this was all platted, this was all put together at the same time, so there haven't been any zoning changes.
There haven't been any zoning
Since any
changes.
house is built, this has always been called that it was gonna be commercial property. Okay.
Could there be some additional requirements for those lots that would be helpful to the residents that are neighboring here?
So since it is not a PUD, they aren't required to provide any additional amenities. They meet the zoning code. I believe the planning commission can make a recommendation that they enhance that, if they choose to.
If I could just jump in
Yep.
to support, I echo Sophia's comment, just chairing commission, reconsideration of the trees that are proposed on the east side of that through street could be, something just worth consideration. Just that there was a comment on coniferous trees, evergreen trees obviously help with headlight screening. So.
Year-round.
The reason I'm on this planning commission is because an office warehouse park was built in my backyard, as Sophia well knows. And I had the same feelings that you all did, and it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and there's adequate screening. And so when these proposals do come before us and before the city council, we're gonna be talking about this all again to make sure that, we're doing the best that we can to screen commercial businesses from, low residential housing. But similar to my situation, this was always planned to be commercial business here, and so it's not like any zoning has changed like we talked about, but it won't be perfect, but it'll be as best as it probably can be.
I concur. I think we've got limitations within the way the law is written to what we can push back on. If there an amendment wants to be made that we want to change and require that to be coniferous or evergreen trees, we can add that as an amendment, but I need someone to do that.
But I think it's already in there because we have it's in the guidelines to be 90% opaque.
Right.
So
Yeah.
however they want to achieve that, it's, I know there's a little gray area, whether it's 90% opaque year-round, when there's trees on your leaves on the trees or not, but it's something that I think we'll need to visit when these businesses do come for their conditional use
Right,
permits.
but I think there's some requirement when the businesses come into play, but for now, this is the plan in play that's being approved with the road and the development, and obviously that needs, whatever needs to get put in for this, we need to make sure we've got that covered.
And I think their concern necessarily isn't like the businesses and the parking, it is the traffic and the vehicle headlights off Irene
Noise
and noise.
and safety. And the street is, we're locked in on that street where it is, that's what I'm understanding.
I would have to defer to the city engineer, but I know the curb cuts are predetermined and the geometries are
But
predetermined,
it
so
could maybe
if there's
drop
flexibility.
over to the west a little further maybe, and then create more space on the east side of that street so that there could be maybe 2 tiers of trees.
It would require reconfiguration of the sidewalks, trails, street, and lot
okay.
size.
And what about something at the end of 9th Street there? Just, maybe it could be a part of the development introduction or something, that there's some
At
sort
the
of.
T,
At the T in the road there. Because I think that's where, I mean, I understand coming off 10th and 5th, there's going to, probably not 5th as much as 10th, but I think this 9th Street is going to be more of an issue with the turning headlights on those backyards there. So what do we propose? I don't know what to. Some small retainer right there, or like a brick wall with maybe a sign of the development on it, something that looks nice and.
I don't know you're gonna be able to get to a point where you're gonna solve the problem for everybody with all things. It is what it is. I think beyond natural landscaping, it is what it is with the where location of the road and the location of the property lines.
Well, here's a benefit, if we can look for the silver lining here. These are 30% impervious commercial lots. That's really significant. If they're normally, what did you say, 70%? Yeah, I mean, so it is gonna be a much more of a green space development for those commercial lots. So I guess I'd have to look at that and keeping the balance with what we've got going here.
And the hardest thing is determining means and methods where, what you said, the standard is 90% opacity, whether that is natural landscaping or a physical barrier. It's not for us to determine how that is done, that is up for them to propose how to meet that standard. Could we apply that standard to the proposed plantings or buffer on the east side of Irene and just say there needs to be a 90% opacity barrier on the east side of Irene?
I'll second that.
So
Whether it's
just-
conifers,
Yeah.
retaining wall that's 3 feet
Yeah.
high,
Can we say that can we get that language as an amendment to add to this? So you want to say it again?
I don't feel like that's a reasonable expectation for somebody to build a 90%
opacity.
opacity barrier for a mile along a road.
But if they're all, conifers?
At 90% opacity, at 6 feet tall, that's.
Could there be
But
two tiers there?
Just drop in here
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
So when we did review the screening ordinance, it's from a more intense versus less intense land use, and the city generally doesn't include a roadway as a land use category. So that's the intent of why it's on the tenant side, because they're the ones responsible for screening. If we were to put it on the other side of Irene, I do think that would still, regardless of if it's a fence or a berm or retaining wall, you still have to have some considerations into the size of that boulevard, because once those trees are mature, it would conflict with the retaining wall and fence. So if that is the recommendation, there still would be some revisions required.
All right. So if someone would like to make an amendment to the current motion that's on the table, or we're going to vote on the motion as it stands.
The only thing is to deal with something on that east side, I think, and I don't know how you do that with that just being the edge of the boulevard there without moving the street. Unless the property, I don't know.
You can bring motion back up. Sophia.
The planning commission may make a amendment, I suppose, to urge the developer to reconsider screening on that side, so that leaves it open-ended on what it could be and doesn't speak to the feasibility requirement of it. But they could consider
Make some-
revisions.
I want to
since
make
it's
sure
not
that we
a-
give staff and the developer enough guidance in what we're doing
Correct.
versus really vague language that doesn't help out.
More specific.
So would we move to recommend approval of preliminary plat request by Vadnais Associates on the subject property with the requirement for additional screening on the east side
Of Irene.
of Irene? I don't know if that's clear enough or that's too vague.
Additional screening on the east
I think that
side
should
of
be
the-
sufficient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Let's write that down.
Recommended conditions of approval listed on the staff report, plus.
we want to make it slightly more specific to say the concern is vehicle headlights and traffic, which is
The reasoning.
not necessarily 6 feet, but could be 3 or 4. You know, we're trying to mitigate mainly headlights and lights from vehicle traffic rather than full city standard screening.
Trees aren't gonna do it.
Yeah.
A hedge or something in there.
The last slide, previous slide, you had proposed. I mean, the answer's there, just reverse the proposed trees.
I'm sorry, we're not taking public comment at this time. Thank you. So move to recommend approval of preliminary plat request by Vadnais Associates on the subject property based on the findings and the fact and recommended conditions of approval listed in the staff report in addition to addressing additional screening requirements on the east side of Irene. Do you have a second on that motion with the amendment?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion with the amendment as read? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion with the amendment passes. Thanks, Sophia.
Just a note, this is going to city council on June 16th.
Okay, thank you.
Stay for this one.
We'll take a 5-minute recess. If people want to leave.
Let me see what you want again, additional screening, so it's open to whatever they want to come up with. That's good. High five on that one. Thank you.
No. Always want to.
Of course, we'll get home and we'll do it, right? Talk to our spouses or friends or.
I recall the backyard, your backyard. I remember that vividly. I'm here. Yeah.
And because you know, you've been through it, just like I've been scared.
Thank you.
It's horrible.
I have had such a problem with my CenturyLink since I've had it. And the guy, they were out last week, they were out 3 months ago. I mean, it's
No, but you're gonna get one.
All right, let's get started back in here, please. Hey,
All right.
all
Hello
right.
again, Chair and members of the commission. So, we're gonna talk tonight about a city-initiated comprehensive plan amendment. I'll tell you a little bit about how we got here. I think that's important. And then we'll talk about what it means for the city moving forward. So, let's begin with the background. The Lake Elmo is part of the Met Council area. As city within the Met Council, the city of Lake Elmo receives a system statement every 10 years or so, and that's the real kickoff to the comprehensive plan update process. So every city in the Met Council region receives a system statement. I think as you might remember from the Planning Commission training that we did earlier this year, the city's system statement has within it basically a table that contains the expectations from the Met Council on generally the population growth in the city in the year 2030, 2040, and 2050, or through those years. And so the system statements are published in September. In this case, the 2025 system statement was published in September. From that time of publication, the city has technically under state statute 60 days to appeal the system statement. Vast majority, I would say, of communities in the Met Council region do not appeal their system statements, most often because they don't find a need for that. Most issues that cities might have with their system statement, typically, as we'll talk about, can be worked out through just everyday coordination with the Met Council staff. In this particular situation, the White Bear Lake court case appears to have had some impact on the system statement that the city of Lake Elmo received. The impact seems to have been sort of a decrease in the expectation for population growth in the city of Lake Elmo, and so we'll talk about that. So first of all, I kind of mentioned what a system statement is, but just to touch a little bit more on this, a system statement is an individualized document that indicates how communities are impacted by regional plans. So this includes things like the transportation system, the water resources in the area, regional parks and trails, et cetera. Once the system statements are released, cities are then expected to update their comprehensive plan. And so that's kind of where the city is in process right now. Here is a little bit of information pulled from the system statement. At the top of the screen, that top table, that is the Imagine 2050 forecast for the city of Lake Elmo. As you can see, the population is that top row in that table. They tell us that the 2020 population was just over 11,000. 2030 is expected to be 15,000. 2040, 16,900. And then by 2050, the city of Lake Elmo is expected to have 18,900. And so the implication of this table is actually, it's quite important because particularly with households, this is kind of the expectation that the Met Council has for the city of Lake Elmo. Like from a sewer service standpoint, as you know, the Met Council provides regional sewer to communities in the metro. In order to provide and plan for regional sewer, they produce these population and household estimates that they kind of base the provision of their services on. And so there's a number of different things that the cities do to kind of meet regional policies and kind of work, in theory, work hand in hand with the Met Council to grow in a way that is planned. So the implications of these forecasts for cities, as I mentioned, they're important. Really, they guide the updates that cities will begin on their comp plans. So each community is expected to carry some share of regional growth. It's expected to be proportionate to the size of the community. These forecasts do aid in that long-range wastewater system planning. The Met Council is thinking in really long-term increments, and when they're thinking about providing wastewater service in the metro, and these forecasts, in some cases, might be used by other agencies. For example, the DNR, when they're understanding or trying to understand what are the growth trends for communities in the Twin Cities. The Met Council does have demographers. They have people on staff that are kind of trained in this area, that are, population modelers. So I just want to kind of quickly walk through a timeline of events, and then we'll talk about the impacts here. So in September, as I mentioned, the system statements were released. In October, the city's staff, about a month later, met with the Met Council and asked some specific questions, just at a high level about the system statement. We noticed that the population estimates seemed a bit low, just to be honest. And so they just weren't quite squaring with, kind of what we were seeing coming down, as you've seen now a couple of developments in front of you. The numbers didn't quite seem to square. So anyways, we were asking about what were the data sources or trends informing the population and the household estimates. And then we also asked what happens if development exceeds the forecasted growth, because again, we kind of got the sense that, it seems like population growth here, based on projects that are known to be in the pipeline, seemed like the numbers might need to be a little higher. So right after the meeting, the Met Council followed up. Their staff provided information on the primary changes to the forecasts were due to regional trends. And so the Met Council was saying that across the Twin Cities region, that growth has slowed a little bit in the last number of years, and so that's impacted kind of their projection across the region. There was definitely an indication of openness from the Met Council to adjust the population forecasts in coordination with staff. This happens routinely. There's continuously coordination back and forth, between communities and the Met Council. Some communities might be not growing as fast as the Met Council is projecting, and some communities might be growing faster. And so in those cases, there is that regular staff coordination that ultimately, in most cases, just leads to an administrative increase in the forecast, because that's the expectation for growth. There was also further clarification that the city is not punished for growing faster than than the forecasts project. There was also some specific follow-up that gets really deep into the weeds on their methodologies. Long story short, the White Bear Lake issue at this point in time really hadn't come up. That had not been part of the conversation. So then in November, about a month after that, the period for the appeals closed. And so staff at that point were comfortable not appealing the Met Council's population forecasts, primarily upon the ability of the city to expect that periodically these forecasts can be adjusted. So let's say we get into the comp plan process, we really dig into the numbers, and we realize, oh, actually the city, just with the developments in the queue, is expected to grow more. Then we could work with the Met Council to have that forecast adjustment made. And so we thought that those might be better understood as we move forward. And so then fast forward then again to early 2026, staff received a White Bear Lake methodology memo from the city of Hugo. This is something that apparently was posted within the Met Council's website. Apparently it was available to the public, but staff just didn't, it wasn't part of the conversation at any point about these forecasts. But anyways, this White Bear Lake memo did basically contain a policy position of the Met Council that we'll talk about that's pretty impactful. And so city staff identified at that point that was seen to be kind of an issue for the city. And so started to look at options to move forward with how, first of all, quantifying what does development look like in the city, where are we at with respect to these forecasts, and then what options do we have with the Met Council. And then in February, city staff actually met with the Met Council staff and got more information, and before that gave them information on the city's growth to try to put a point on what are some of our concerns with these forecasts. How would we actually know about growth in the city? So at that point, Met Council staff did acknowledge that the permitting data helped to show that the forecasts were low, and they agreed that there would be a solution needed for forecasts that were more representative of growth in Lake Elmo. And I would mention to you that the city of Oakdale, and there were a couple of other nearby cities that are having the same issue. And in the Oakdale's case, they did end up appealing. They made their appeal. So I just quickly want to talk through what data we provided to the Met Council and what it kind of shares or shows. So the city provided, the first piece of information was a table on a projection forward. So based on the developments that are known to be in the pipeline, you saw one this evening, Limerick Village. We knew that they were very, very close to applying, and we were right about that, it turns out. You know, based on all of these new developments that are known in the pipeline, what do we think the actual population will be if they go through as planned? And so, as you can see, 2026 is provided on the column on the left, and then as you move in 5-year increments beyond that. Just looking at the developments that are known by 2020 or 2030, staff are projecting that we would be at 18,900, which is where they had Lake Elmo by 2050. So there's a pretty big delta there between what staff were seeing coming forward with these projects that we knew and what the cap was basically going to be by the Met Council. And so as you move into 2035 and 2040, the city population growth slows down a little bit just because the number of development projects are probably likely to, you know, kind of plateau or even go down at some point just based on, you know, there's only so much land that's within the MUSA that's developable. So just to kind of recap this, if you look at the 2040 column, you can see the biggest difference here. The city staff projected a possible population of 22,000 by 2040, and the Met Council's 2025 system statement had the city at kind of being capped at at 16,900. And so I should kind of reiterate at this point that the forecasts are important because they represent the sewer capacity that the Met Council expects to provide the city. So if the city is growing more quickly or at a rate that's higher than what they think or what they share in the system statement, that's a problem because that is a kind of a cap on the ability of the city to receive sewer service for new development. So that's a pretty critical thing to work through. We also looked backwards. So we just looked at, kind of looked forward at new development. We looked backward. What is the demand that's been really, that the city's experienced over the last 10 years, the last decade in permitting? And so on this table, this was in the report as well, the city has generally averaged over or between 100 units and 200 units of detached housing, in some cases, a lot more, of detached single-family homes per year. So that's not even accounting for attached residential units, which are included in the overall household number. So long story short, the city has a demonstrated demand for residential growth over the last decade. Okay, so moving into March, the follow-up after that February meeting was that the Met Council kind of offered kind of a solution. So the solution that the Met Council offered was for the city to amend the 2040 comprehensive plan to adjust the forecasts for 2030 and 2040. So the information included in that follow-up was that the city could amend its 2040, its current comprehensive plan, to change the forecast from 2030 to have 7,200 households or 19,200 people or residents. And then 2040 to have 8,250 households and approximately 21,400 people or residents. So those are a lot more or a lot closer to being in line with where the city seems to be at already with the developments that are known to be in the pipeline. So I want to quickly talk about that White Bear Lake memo. The White Bear Lake memo is, number one, it starts with a summary of the overall methodology that was used in their population estimates. This memo was attached to your staff report. It references the legislatively directed White Bear Lake Comprehensive Plan group. They've recently put out some information that they've been working on, but there is a group that's been reviewing kind of a long-term plan for water supply. If you're not familiar with the White Bear Lake case, The White Bear Lake case was initiated by homeowners on White Bear Lake. They sued the DNR effectively because the lake levels in the early 2000s were dropping in White Bear Lake, and the homeowners sued on the basis that the DNR was issuing more permits, more water use permits to cities than it should have, and that resulted in the kind of the decreased lake levels in White Bear Lake. And so
That was the hypothesis.
that was their hypothesis. I think there's been an enormous amount of studies since that time, some directed by court, that really have dove into that issues in ways that are hard for me to explain really to you. But generally speaking, I think it's the connection between city water use and lake levels is a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a nuanced issue than what I think was initially represented. I think we can say that much.
It's opaque.
Yeah, it's opaque, 90%.
And the city was taking more water than they were allocated.
Correct, and there are
was going on.
appropriation permits that the DNR grants to cities, and that was part of that lawsuit.
Right,
And
and
so,
that's why we were growing so much, because they were getting more water than they were supposed to.
so yeah, there's definitely a lot there. The White Bear Lake memo, though, from a population projection will kind of narrow the scope of this discussion really to the forecasts. The White Bear Lake memo really had two important policy positions that the Met Council was taking. They said, I'll read kind of verbatim here in bold, that it determined it prudent to withhold its consent of additional growth in the local jurisdictions affected by the White Bear Lake area court decision until the Met Council is assured additional growth does not conflict with court orders. So basically, this is saying that the Met Council will not increase forecasts for communities.
We did.
With it, unless the White Bear Lake area court issue is basically resolved. It's not conflicting with the court orders. The second line in bold is also important. It says, if a request is made to increase the forecasted growth for these communities, if a request is made, it may only be considered after modification of the court order, a change in local conditions, or a solution to water supply constraints are determined and implemented. So basically, again, this issue, the Met Council is saying the White Bear Lake issue needs to be resolved before we will consent to increase population. And so what we were initially, as staff, comfortable with was the idea that we were gonna work with the system statement and then would be able to work through administrative adjustments to that forecast when development that was consistent with the city's plans proved to be more than what the forecast was showing. In reality, because of this policy statement that Met Council provided, that was not an option any longer, because they're saying, we won't let communities grow more. We won't consent to increase their forecasts until the water issue is resolved. And so this really is quite challenging for the city of Lake Elmo, because now you're facing effectively kind of a ceiling on growth that was previously not, imposed. And so that is kind of a challenge, and I think that's really why staff's in front of you this evening, recommending that the city amend its 2040 plan to at least provide a much more reasonable population and household forecast for 2030 and 40. The idea being that the Met Council is going to, and has communicated they will allow the city to carry over from its 2040 plan, this population as amended, into the 2050 comprehensive plan. So staff do see this as an important thing for continuity of planning, for continuity of just being able to kind of plan for utilities. So I kind of hit on the bottom line, but that's really it. The bottom line is that the city is starting to work on its 2050 comp plan, and it needs a reasonable baseline for population and household estimates. So just comparing these figures, that this table was provided in your staff report, you can see in the bold in parentheses, that is what staff are proposing to change to. What you see in kind of the non-formatted, the non-bold text in these columns, that's what's currently in the 2040 comprehensive plan. So this is exactly what staff are proposing to modify in the 2040 comp plan, proposing to change total households by 2030 from 6,500 to 7,200, and then total households by 2040 from 8,200 to 8,250. These are that bold number that I read on both of those. That's the number that the Met Council, after that conversation, allowed. Similarly with population, changing the population in 2030 from 18,000 to 19,200, and then population by 2040 from 22,304 to 21,400. And so you'll notice that it's kind of funny, the households are proposed to go up, but the population is proposed to go down. The key reason there is that the assumption is changing in terms of what is the average household size. And so Met Council is effectively saying you'll have more households, but average household size will be decreasing. And actually, that's reasonable. That's been a trend across the metro for the most part over the last decade or so. So that staff feel comfortable with that assumption. I also want to mention that there is a projection of households that are unsewered. So these are households in rural areas of Lake Elmo. That population or those numbers of households are shown to go down. Staff have followed up on that question. We have not resolved that completely. I think it doesn't really make sense for unsewered households to go down. It probably should be staying about even, or maybe even going up a little bit, considering that the city has approved new unsewered developments since 2040 plan was adopted.
Would that mean Met Council may have to increase its sewer capability for some of the outlying areas? Have had areas that have had to be developed as either community or single residency septic just because Met Council had no capacity in that area.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So yeah, does that account for, or what's the situation with our planning for, basically, for lack of a better term, saving, failed septic systems? The way that that's been managed to my knowledge over the last decade or so has been the city gets the forecast, it gets its basically amount of sewer capacity, and then needs to figure out how to work within that to save those systems. So that's my understanding of how that's worked. I don't expect that they would provide this additional kind of unplanned but planned sewer capacity.
Noise.
So should the city's planning commission recommend this move forward, staff are going to bring this to the city council for their consideration for approval and their determination. If the city council approves the amendment that's proposed here, we would then be submitting that to the Met Council. We would need to do the affected and adjacent jurisdiction review. We hope that Oakdale and others are going to be sympathetic and they'll get their comments in quickly. So the Met Council would then need to review this and probably would take it to a full Met Council meeting for final approval. So there is a process for review. We have posted a public hearing. I haven't gotten any comments. Staff do have a sample motion. We are asking for the Planning Commission to recommend approval of these amendments as I've described them. I am happy to take questions that you've got for me.
So if we don't approve and we would have the motion to stick with the published numbers as they are from the Met Council, we'd be limiting development. We'd be forced to limit development within Lake Elmo.
You'd be in a much tougher place to, there's enough development that's been approved already.
Yeah.
That you're gonna be in a tough spot when you're looking at the 2050 plan. And I think staff don't recommend putting yourself in a tough spot.
No, I appreciate that. I'm gonna assume that there are those in favor of decreasing and limiting development within the
Sure.
Lake Elmo community and probably on this commission.
Yes.
And those that are in favor or not. And so I'm just asking those questions and understand where we stand a little bit. I find it interesting, just a comment, that there aren't people here for this, because this is probably the biggest item on this agenda tonight. And yet, no one stuck around or dug in to understand what it meant. Or am I overstating the importance of what this is in a baseline from the Met Council and what we can or cannot do, and putting us into a difficult position?
Chair, if that's a question,
Yes.
I would say that, yes, this is a really important item. Staff, definitely worked hard behind the scenes to try to understand what the options are. I think it's unfortunate, just from my perspective, that a water issue is now kind of turned into a sewer issue. That's kind of, if I had to boil it down, that's kind of the problem here. And if the city has to work with the system statement that was published in September and those lower numbers, I think the city's gonna have to make some pretty hard decisions with respect to how people currently have their land guided. There could be situations where folks are taken out of the MUSA that wish to remain in the MUSA, or other situations like that could arise that they would be naturally required because you have to try to hit that, that number.
So let me propose a hypothetical situation. So I guess in setting that up, is every project that's been approved and fully approved so far, would those meet the numbers that were provided initially by the Met Council?
I think we looked at this recently. I think if we just draw a line and say, okay, today, after today, if we approved no future developments, I think the answer would probably be that you would be over.
We'd be over already.
Yes.
Do you know what that number is? How many are on the docket?
So if we go back, this is kind of hard because we got.
And I know you've done a lot of work.
Well, I saw
and
the
staff has,
962 there, and I
Yeah.
wondered if that was the correct number.
I think that you're looking at 15,200 residents is the expected sort of cap on population by 2030. Staff project that you're, very close to that right now.
Yep.
With what's approved. So the issue here is you've got a comprehensive plan that's guided land, like Limerick Village, within a current development decade. So there's land that could develop, legally speaking, from now through 2030 by, these developers, these landowners, they have the right to develop in a certain way with a certain number of units, and they may do so. You'll probably see more developments come forward proposed, and we're basically, it looks like we're already kind of at that 15,000 number, and so that's kind of the main concern. We're basically already over these forecasts.
It just seems strange that the city fought or the Met Council not to grow. And then Met Council says, all right, well, here's your population. We're like, no, we're gonna need more than that now.
Right.
So it's
completely
a
backwards.
little counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And
And
I appreciate
everybody-
all the work that you've put into this,
I
David.
think,
It's not
I think
anything
typically
against
there's a
you.
dislike for the Met Council in the way they control,
Yes.
enforce growth upon you, and now the other shoe is dropped, and we're kind of like, oh, well, they can help us limit growth potentially, if that's
And
what we
and what I'm
wanted to
hearing
do.
you say, Nathan, is that, legally, these parcels could be developed, and then we're gonna run into legal issues by saying, no, we can't develop them, we don't.
Yeah,
have-"
because would there be anything in ordinance that would allow us to deny it just based on exceeding our comprehensive plan goal? But then there's nothing in the there's no ordinance saying, well, you can't approve because you over comprehensive plan, and then now instead of Met Council suing us, developers start to sue us.
Yeah, it's just a couple things to clarify, I think, just to put a fine point. So, with respect to the systems, the White Bear Lake memo and what they're kind of capping the city, so to say, this is all based on the expectation that there will be some resolution to the water issue. And so, in theory, there could be this magical moment in 2027 where there's seen to be some kind of a solution, and now the White Bear Lake memo is no longer required, and cities can move forward to amend their forecasts upwards. But the challenge there is that you would then be waiting for over a year while you're supposed to be completing a comprehensive plan on, are we allowed to grow more than, or not? And so I think because of that challenge, I think we're recommending that, you know, we proceed with this now to give some certainty to the process. To your question about developments being able to get denied, like the InWood townhomes or commercial development this evening, that was just a planned unit or not, that was not a planned unit development, it was all by right. And so in those situations, the city has far less opportunity to deny developments. The city can use its premature subdivisions ordinance, but it has to make really specific findings that there's not enough water capacity or enough sewer capacity, or they're not providing roadway connections or something. So it kind of can be done, but it gets to be a lot more
But when
risky.
With that being said, when a PUD came forward and we didn't have the sewer capacity, because the Met Council didn't provide that to us, that PUD could be denied.
Yeah, if you don't have sewer capacity, that would be that could be a reason to deny a development, but it's just, that's not.
It's
that's-
counterintuitive
yeah,
to what
it's
what
not
your
great.
job is, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but I want to make sure we're considerate of all the different viewpoints.
Sure.
It's Lake Elmo.
Yep.
They're the people who have been here and don't want it to grow, and then there's the other side that does. And they're both valid, and they're both got valid points, right? So, I think it's important that we understand the tools that are on the table as much as we can to make it hard for you. I'm kidding.
I'll make a few comments, because I'm one of the people who have been really concerned about it. I'm not against growth, I'm for controlled growth that meets the expectations of the residents that are here, that have adequate water, that are not staking water from the people that are on the wells up north and enforcing this plume, the pollution plume, to go all around. But slow, controlled growth that pays its own way is fine. And the numbers game really upsets me. The number of people per household that we're gonna use to calculate today, but we're gonna use another number, 2 days later, because somewhere a demographer says, this is a number we can use this year and next year. So it's like tiddlywinks game, you never know, it's just gonna keep changing. It's very frustrating.
I thought the number was going down because my kids are gonna be out of my house.
Well, I don't know. It's interesting to see that they're putting the 2.5 is the household, so, and they're saying that is, to me, it seems like it's a age population change. We have an aging population, so we're not seeing as many households with children in them. I think that's probably a factor in all of this that's not even included in there.
Families are having less kids.
Yeah, less kids.
That's
They're
normal.
getting married later, and we have an aging population of older people that aren't.
We
they
got to
don't- the
build a
kids are
new
gone.
school on a place that wasn't even supposed to be built on.
Yeah.
One issue at a time here, Susie.
Huh? Yeah. All right.
What was the Oakdale appeal?
Don't get me going on.
It's for a similar reason.
And what are they trying to do? What is?
I think they were in the same boat. They had concern about their population being capped as well through the White Bear Lake water issue. So it seemed there were a few communities in this part of the metro that were really, this situation was really unique, I would say. Like, a lot of the communities around the metro have not faced this particular issue. The city of Hugo is another one that has concerns.
They have room to grow. Does Oakdale have room to grow? I mean,
they're-
like,
they're
aren't they
not-
just all?
So
Where's
be-
Woodbury
where
at?
are
Are
they
they?
growing?
Woodbury was successful in working with the Met Council to raise their populations and households without having to appeal.
Let's get the motion on the table so we can at least discuss that. Please. Do we have a motion? Anyone?
Move to recommend city council approval of the amendments proposed to the forecast found in the Lake Elmo 2040 comprehensive plan as identified by staff.
Maybe I missed it. Did we host the public hearing?
Oh, you're right, thank you.
Right, thank you, Sophia.
Stop, go back. Do I need a motion to open the public
I'll
hearing?
rescind that for now.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Public hearing is open as of 9:01. Any comments from the gallery? Anything mailed in? None at all. And with that, we will close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, public hearing's closed at 9:02. All right. Motion on the
Okay,
table?
move to recommend city council approval of the amendments proposed to the forecast found in the Lake Elmo 2040 comprehensive plan as identified by staff.
Second? I'll second it. All right, discussion. Do you want to amend this?
I keep thinking about the demand versus desire.
Yes.
Can you extrapolate on that at
Well,
all?
I mean, is it the demand that's driving us, or is it the desire to grow that's driving this, you know? Do we want to grow?
Is that a question for staff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to, like, where is it, you know,
Yep, so.
how is that determined?
So staff are looking at this from the two perspectives of what is the projection, kind of like what we talked about for the data. What's the projection of what we know to be coming forward based on conversations with developers, concept plans that have been reviewed, land that's within the development decade between 2030 and 2020 and 2040, 30, sorry. So what do we think's coming down the pipeline? And then also, what's the demonstrated permitting demand in the city? And so, it seems like there is a strong demand for continued residential growth in the city. And there's also development interest in growth. And it's a little troubling from staff's perspective that, I guess I'll just speak for myself. I don't speak for all staff, of course, but you've got a 2040 comprehensive plan that has kind of a set of forecasts that developers have been working under and future land uses and growth phasing that developers have been working under for the most part. And for that to go down and then get capped to not be able to increase for a year or potentially more is just troubling from a kind of continuity standpoint for planning for how the city sets up its 2050 comp plan. So I think I've kind of informally said to others, it feels more like this amendment would help to kind of just keep kind of things on a more stable trajectory as opposed to with the system statement kind of creating a little turbulence. So
Let me ask this question. If we had a 24 comp plan that was supposed to manage to a certain number, what happened that we're already blowing the budget, so to speak?
I think generally speaking, the 2040 plan, the numbers are pretty similar to what staff are proposing to have at the end of the day. So in other words, I think the 2040 plan is generally seen as being, kind of,
On the trajectory?
yeah, it's kind of the trajectory where the city's going,
Show
right?
those numbers to us
Sure.
again.
But you know where I'm at, you're coming at, Nathan, if we had a 2040 plan that we were gonna be at 18,000 by 2030, but now we're at 18,000 at 2026.
Yep.
How did we lose control? How did we get off the rails so early? How did we spend all our population so early and not manage it appropriately? That was according to the plan. So if we give more population and reset this, what's the guarantee to us and the residents of Lake Elmo that we're gonna maintain and manage to those numbers again?
So this is
And
a.
it doesn't feel like a
Yeah,
free-for-all.
sure.
right?
Sure, so this is kind of, this is a once every roughly 10-year
Yeah,
cycle. And so what you've got in the 2040 plan is shown on the screen here, that the numbers that are not in bold. So you've got 18,000 residents roughly expected by 2030 and 22,000 by 2040. And so, as the city staff is proposing to amend this, in conjunction with what we've talked about with the Met Council staff, these numbers are generally on track with where you are already headed based on the 2040 plan. So I don't think that there would be a huge change with the land use kind of guidance moving forward in the 2040 plan.
Okay.
That's that's kind of the whole idea here, is just to kind of keep this a little bit more reasonable, on the same general trajectory. I don't think staff are expecting a ton of changes from a land use standpoint between 2040 and 2050. Seems like generally, there might be little changes here or there, of course, but major changes don't seem to be necessary, at least in some of the preliminary conversation.
Let me ask this question. Was the density requirements from the Met Council forcing higher population numbers than we'd initially planned? Because instead of now having 500 people in this PUD, their density requirements
Oh, sure.
said that now you're required to have 1,000 people in this PUD.
So-
And have thus limited what land can to be developed because we're having to meet these higher density numbers and we've burnt our sewer and our water numbers up.
So, yeah, it's a good question. I think part of that question is about, in this next cycle, the Met Council is increasing the average density requirement for all new development within sewered areas. It's going from 3 to 3.5. And so the city then has to look at all of the developing or potentially redeveloping sites in the community and say, all right, the average of the development in these sites has to be now 3.5 units per acre. One benefit is that new methodology that we talked about actually earlier this evening, that actually kind of tends to push up the density numbers a little bit. So in all reality, it won't be extremely difficult to hit that 3.5 unit per acre number, partly because of that. And there are some other things to look at from like the math, the numbers side of things. Maybe it's narrowing certain density ranges. I know Jason's looked at that in pretty great detail and kind of, made the comment a number of times that certainly the city, should be in a good place to be able to meet these requirements.
I got the answer on the demand side, but what about the desire side? Does the community, do the people that live here, or the majority of the people want the city to grow? How do we know? Has there been a survey or?
So you've got, I can't speak for residents.
Yeah.
I'm not a resident, but you've got an adopted comp plan that the community did adopt in its 2040 plan that has very similar numbers to what staff have here. And I would, echo or say that there will be surveys the city's going to be doing moving forward, certainly to
It's
understand.
always after the fact. Like I said, the community was not involved really in the last plan. There were like 10 people, some of them didn't bother to come to the meetings. And whenever residents came to the meetings, and it was led by another person, I don't know who she was, and they tried to make some comments, they said that they were there to observe. They could only observe, they could not participate. So and in essence, the residents who live here actually were cut out of the planning process. They were just given, this is what we're gonna do. So just from a historical point, like you say, you don't live here, so you're not aware of that. But other communities seem to have like phased plans, where Lake Elmo just seemed to open up and it was splat ball. Wherever you wanted to develop, they said this part, this part. So it was hard for our maintenance staff and engineering and everybody to pull stuff together, because it was just, oh, look, it was a big free-for-all.
I think there are phased plans, whether how closely they're followed is the question, is part of the question, I think.
Well, like you said, it was a free-for-all.
Yeah, but I think we've got to, at some point say, okay, the expectation from at least the volunteer commission that this is, to staff is to say, here's your budget, you gotta execute within it. Here are the rules, you gotta stay inside the lane.
Yeah.
You can bounce all over there, but if you're gonna stay inside the lane, if we're gonna go out, and that's generally what variances and all that does anyway,
Yeah.
is that if you're gonna go outside the lane, it's gotta come through here, and it's gotta go through council. And I think that would be my ask, is that if we're gonna change these numbers, that we're managed to those numbers in a reasonable growth, and we're not back in this position in 2040 or in 2030, 2035, where we're already at our 2040 numbers, where we've spent all our head count and our water and our sewer, putting that in a sense of currency. Does that make sense? I know this is what you expected tonight, that this was gonna be this.
No, this is an important conversation for sure. And
Yeah,
I know,
so
I know
too.
staff will review and we'll have those debrief conversations about,
Right.
you know, what we're hearing.
So, but I know this is a lot of work trying to figure this out, and we really appreciate it, so thank you, Nathan. So, motion's on the table. I propose that we bring it to vote. All in favor of the motion as it's stated, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
All right. The motion passes.
Yep.
And I think the conversation was important.
Very.
And I know that council, at least and a few council members will watch it and pay attention
Oh,
to
they'll
the
do it.
conversation we had.
No, they'll do it.
But I think it's more of a direction for our staff to help, again, manage that budget, so to speak. All right?
Yeah, but not to feel that they have to.
We're not done yet. Don't pack up your stuff, kids.
not.
All right.
What kind of goodies do you have there?
All right. Any new or unfinished business?
Not this evening.
All right. Communication update. I have one.
I have when you're done.
I have one. Sophia Jensen's been here for 5 years with the city. Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you.
Yep. Very
Our
good.
right-hand person here making planning commission go. So thank you for your
Thank you.
commitment, your time, and your dedication to the community of Lake Elmo. It is much appreciated.
They don't
Thank you.
mind.
And I'd like to make a comment if I could, please.
Yes.
As we're looking at the old village area and the development as we go forward, what I'm seeing happen, we've got new town and we've got old town. And is there some way that we can kind of incorporate some of the old town feeling a little bit more than what is currently being thought about? In response really to that Shulkin field that is kind of before the Regional Park Reserve. You're talking about transition zones, which I really enjoyed that memo that I got that's coming somewhere along the line. But I just want us to think about how the negative impact is happening in some of the areas of Lake Elmo, in the wildlife, and the wildlife corridors are gone. There's just some issues that are coming about that are disrupting to a lot of people. And they won't know it until, like these individuals came here. Yes, they knew what the plan was, but yet they did not realize that negative impact at the time. And my heart just goes out to them, because I know how heart rate, and it's really emotional.
I agree, and I think that should, something we put together for a workshop
You know.
to discuss. I don't know when the next one we have scheduled, if we want to schedule one, but I think that's a great point.
But it's just a thought of, there's a lot of anguish, and you could see it here with the
Yep.
individuals today. And what can we do to make it a little smoother for them, or to understand, or be more beneficial to what their needs are? Because remember, people are coming to our community and
To
and
create
with
their
certain
home.
expectations,
I
and
agree.
they're not being met. Or hopes of expectations are different, and we do have a big responsibility. Okay, that's
Thank
all.
you.
I received a message from a member of the community, and they want to know what Lake Elmo's position is on data centers. So is there anything that we could, maybe that could be a part of a joint meeting as well to discuss that? I don't know if that's even something that we could have in our community, but most people don't want them.
We don't have any
But they want, they want to.
Yeah,
Don't have any
the
water.
water's a
Water
problem, but I
computers.
mean, maybe we need to have that somewhere that's just not allowed.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about a joint workshop schedule coming up, since we do have the next few that are already booked out, but both of those items seem like good items to put on the work plan for the planning commission coming up. We are checking a lot of boxes off, so we'll need to add some things to work on next year, so
Okay, well,
those
this
could
is
be
straight
items to
from
bring back up at
community,
that
so-
time.
Thank you, Sophia.
And then again, like all this all the cross-information that was going with the Met Council and so on, it might have been nice to at least update the planning commission a little bit that was going on as it was going on, just to at least be aware that, hey, there are some concerns and that we're working on it, rather than, this was great to learn it, but it would have been nice to have been maybe clued in a little earlier that at least it was an issue. Information.
All right. Sophia, communication updates?
All right, at the June 2nd City Council meeting, City Council approved 9960 57th Street variance, which is that detached shed structure in the residential estate zoning district, and the CUP and variance for the Lake Elmo Medical Center.
Awesome.
And then upcoming meetings, June 26th will be canceled, and we will see you on July 13th.
June 26th is a Friday?
The 23rd, 21st, 20 whatever that one was.
22nd.
22nd.
Very good.
So we don't get to see you till July?
You're welcome to swing, come by.
Stop by
She's
whenever.
got PTO she has to take, so she may not. I'm gonna kick her out of here. All right, and with that, I will adjourn the Monday, June 8th Planning Commission meeting for the City of Lake Elmo. Thank you.
Thank you. All good. May everybody have a good 4th of July, our
Yep.
250th
Yeah, happy
anniversary.
250th.
Our DAR group is having a